Hey, happy holidays, Tim.
Thanks, David. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's great to meet you. Why don't you let everyone know who you are and what your background has been? Because you've got quite an extensive small business background.
Yeah, a little bit of all over the place, definitely. My name is Tim Kraus. I'm in Washington State. I have been a part of and started several little small businesses that have had varying levels of success. The one that actually started getting a little bit of success was when I was just about 30. I started a video production company. I did that for 3 years. I did about 100 videos a year. I went on two international video shoots. They sound more glamorous than they were. The trip was kind of part of the pay and had a good time with that. Started getting some employees, started working with some overseas staff, and really started to really like small business world and got to know tons of business owners. But I didn't get paid very much doing that job at
Hmm.
all. And then COVID came around, and I was looking for something else already. I'd kind of been having my eyes in a different direction. And then COVID came around. It was kind of a good time. Didn't feel like it at the time, but it turned out to be a great time. And I actually got into land investing,
Okay.
which is why I bought and sold pieces of vacant land. Um, Typically not doing anything to them. I split one of them, did a little bit of like site prep kind of cleanup on a few others, but typically doing nothing to them. Where I got a little bit bigger of a team, I sent off around 140,000 pieces of mail over 3 years.
Okay.
I did about 72 deals over those 3 years. Um, Quick history, my parents back have been in the real estate space for a long time, in and out. And back in 2007, I actually got my real estate license, helped them to try to do stuff through 2008. I watched them lose absolutely everything.
Yeah.
So in 2023, when the market really started to slow down and my response rates went in the tank, or my deal rates went in the tank, and my average letters per deal went up by 4x. And so like I was having to send way more mails to do way less deals. I was like, you know what? I want something a little more stable. So I went to one of the more stable slash boring things that exists apparently in the business world. And my mother is actually a CPA,
Okay.
and she saw me doing the system stuff in the business world or in the land world because I learned my brothers who are programmers. A little bit of a side note: I have brothers who are programmers, and so we've kind of learned that. I've learned some things from them definitely. And so I had in the land business 170 some odd training videos, about a 90-point checklist, tools out the wazoo. I mean, at the end, if the market would have kept on going ish how it was going, I was doing very little. I wasn't talking to sellers anymore. I wasn't talking to buyers anymore. I was like, I was only making decisions on property once they got to a certain point, and then kind of going from there. It was pretty great. But with the market getting a little more shaky than I wanted it to, I was like, okay, I'm going to make the move now versus to when I have to make the move. I'd rather make the move preemptively.
Hmm.
And then I've been in the accounting space now for 7 months. I'm not an accountant. I just help with the operational side of the business. Since I've joined, we have been able to double the size of the business. One part of that was
Wow.
through a small it wasn't very big to start with.
Okay.
But I was able to where we doubled the size of the business. A few things. One, through a small acquisition, or a tuck-in, basically, of a book of business,
Hmm.
and then also through systemizing a ton of things. Like before, every price was totally custom, so like the CPA had to be involved in every sort of sale and like a lot of the sales meetings. And now we have the sales meetings; she's not involved at all until like the very end as a small introduction, because now we have price sheet. I have a pricing calculator that I built for the team, which I learned how to build those in the land business.
Hmm.
Because my first land deal I almost made no money on because I didn't calculate title and escrow fees. And I was like, oh, I'm buying it for this, I'm selling it for this. That's my profit. And I was like, oh, there's title and escrow, and like that took away a lot of it.
Yeah.
It was a cheap piece of land. Um, but but yeah, so that's been going well. And then I've streamlined the onboarding process a lot. Onboarding used to be a couple week process of emails back and forth. Now onboarding is a 60 to 90-minute Zoom call, and we just get everything at one time. We have an onboarding checklist we run people through because accounting is something no business owner really wants to do, but they
Yeah.
have to do it.
Okay.
So that's a little bit of the journey I've been on, and yeah, looking forward to continuing to go down the small business and medium business rabbit hole here because there's a ton of opportunity. That's some
Okay.
ridiculous amounts.
So you've got a whole lot of experience in business. What do you want to talk with me about today?
I would like your expertise and your experience, especially dealing with business owners who are near the transition, potentially either wanting to transition to working less or to transition out entirely. Because one of my plans for this next year is to start doing direct mail for potentially small business opportunities to either do like some people call it consulting for equity, some people call it working in, being a part owner potentially and helping with a certain part of the business. So I kind of want to know what has been your experience with that, because I don't have much experience in that realm.
Yeah. So I've met a lot of people who've tried to do it and it hasn't worked out very well.
Okay,
And I can kind of give you sort of the reasons why.
perfect.
The You go to someone and you say, "Hey, I'm going to improve your business and I would like to get a piece of your business for doing this improvement." Sounds great. And from the business owner's perspective, there's no money out of pocket and you get paid based on the improvement. So why wouldn't I do it? But in any endeavor, you are going to require the participation of that owner to some degree. And when I've seen people try to do this, they just can't get the owner to do the things they need to do. And it's always because there's 101 other sort of fires to put out. And so the people that I've seen be more successful. Now let's back away from that working for equity part and let's just talk about people that want to facilitate improvement in business.
Mhm.
The more done for you the service, from what I've observed, the easier it is to get people to actually follow through and go with the process. But a big part of anyone's buy-in into any process is literally the first word in buy-in, buy. Like, um, I've just had so much more like experience in success in my own business and with watching what other people have done. If a business owner gets to the point where they realize they need a solution, they need to improve, and they need it so badly, they're willing to open their checkbook, then all the other compliance and participation stuff will fall into line because there's been an investment made. And
Mm.
so the business owner will be like, okay, well, I wrote the check for several $1,000s. And now you're telling me like your onboarding story with the accounting firm. Now you've told me you need all of these things. The faster I get it for you, the more quickly I can get the desired outcome. So I learned this in a big way back in my business broker days because I would meet people all the time, excuse me, who wanted to sell their business. And I would have them come into my office in those days and I would sit down, I would explain the process and what we did. Then I would give them a checklist of all the materials I would need in order to start. And I would start with an evaluation. And, initially I was just kind of like doing this for free, like come and sign up and I'll sell your business. And some people would take advantage of it, some people didn't. But the people that were taking advantage of it, once I got the process done and it was listed and up for sale, they really didn't have any level of motivation. Like if I brought them, the $1 million offer or whatever, then yeah, sure they would take it. But if I, brought them a reasonable offer, they may not take it and they may not really care about all the work that I had done to, get all this done. So my first evolution was to adopt the process that my franchisor was recommending, which was to have uh, an engagement fee of some kind. And in the beginning, this was only like 12 or 1,300 bucks. Eventually it became 1,500 and it was there for a long time. Towards the end, I raised it again. But so then I would meet with these people and say, here's all the things we need to move forward. This is the process. And I need $1,500 from you. And what would happen is like 2/3 of people would disappear and I would never see them again. But the other third of the people would show up within 2 business days with a stack of documents and a check.
Wow.
And so it was like, okay, these are the people that actually have the pain. These are the people that are really motivated to get out of their business. They know they need to get out of it and they need to get out of it now. And they're willing to pay a fee and they've gathered all the things I asked for. And then whenever I had to talk to these people to get more information from them to complete the process, they were very open, readily available to me and wanted to participate because they had invested in this thing and they wanted to see it come to fruition. They wanted to make the business sold, right? And that sort of buy-in across the board, I could tell you a lot of professional people out there are probably going to have a similar kind of story. When people have made an investment in the process, they're going to take it more seriously. So your what is the motivation behind wanting to do it for equity? Do you want to have a little piece of 100 different things?
Yeah, so that's part of it. So, and again, we'll have to see when the mail actually goes out, what comes back, because it's really hard to evaluate a deal that's not in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the ideas is that the systems and processes part of the business is my favorite part, not so much the sales or the actually doing of the widget or the thing itself. But so my thought is that if I could do just that part of a handful of businesses, that would be hopefully my favorite part of all those businesses. That's kind of
Okay.
the that's the thought. Also, that's where I feel like I'm the highest leverage with my skill set and with the way that I process information.
Okay. And so is part of this idea that if you get a stake in these businesses before they're improved, you will immediately have an appreciation in that stake by doing your work? Is that part of the thinking that you have?
Potentially, I mean, so there's also where you do a equity piece plus a fee, but potentially also I think it just helps align incentives, or at least that's the idea, anyways. Because, like for an example, in the accounting business, we don't charge by the hour; we charge by the deliverable. Because if we charge by the hour, we want to go as you want to go as slow as possible without getting fired.
Hmm.
So I'm not a huge fan of just charging by the hour per se, more about by the outcome.
Yep.
Um, so that's kind of the end of conclusion my brain goes to anyways, at least in trying to figure that out.
Okay. So in when you meet a business owner, so these offers you're making when you do a mail out, are you just simply talking about creating efficiencies in a business and having it run better? Or are you saying I'm willing to do this for no fee?
So I haven't started sending mail yet, which is
Okay.
also something I'd like to talk with you about as well. I mean, I have from the land business, I have like 89,000 mail credits at my print house. So I know I was sending 10,000 letters a month in the land business for a while. So I definitely
Okay.
have the ability to send mail, but I have not flipped that switch yet.
Okay. So one of the things is that if you make a proposal to people where they think they can get you to fix their business without putting out any money, you're going to attract a certain kind of potential client,
Okay.
which
Awesome.
which may not really be the right kind of person that you want, right?
Totally.
And they may have more problems in their business than simply a lack of organization. There could be a lack of market potential, a lack of execution on deliverable, to the service or product that they're giving. It could be all kinds of things. What would really make a lot of sense from the point of view of someone who wants to invest in a lot of different little businesses as a minority shareholder, which I vehemently argue against in my book, Invest Local, but we'll leave that aside. Okay.
Okay. That's fine.
So one of the issues is that you want to be able to know if this is going to be a good investment or not, which is going to require you to do a lot of due diligence and work to understand what's going on in the business. So what I would recommend is that you simply promote yourself as a consultant who does this kind of transformation, and that you approach everyone from the point of view that you charge for your services, and that you're willing to meet with them to look at what this would cost, what it would you would charge them or whatever for their business to fix it up, and in what ways, what their goals are, et cetera. And then I would completely leave the whole working for equity thing on the side, and then make it part of a presentation if and when you find the targets that appeal to you, right? So,
Mhm.
and as you work with more and more customers, you may be able to short circuit that. Like you might discover a certain business category where you really like them and you know that you can really help them, and maybe you make that offer sooner rather than later. But I could almost imagine you doing a presentation for someone where you say, this is what I'm going to do. This is how long it's going to take. This is what it's going to take from you. The total investment is going to be, $30,000 or something, and this is how you pay it. And because of these certain characteristics of your business, if you want, I would be willing to make an investment in your business, maybe post transformation. And this is what, like, I would almost say you want to be paid in full as a consultant and then write them a check for an investment.
Yeah, well, because then you'd have the option at the end if it was if it turned out to be terrible to
Yeah, you are not going to know what this business owner is really like until you work with them for a while, right?
yeah, you're we definitely see that in the accounting space. Some business owners have emergencies every single day.
And and then, to the point that I wrote about in my book, the reasons why you don't want to be a minority shareholder in a small business is that if you become a minority shareholder in a small business, small businesses are often run with a view to the owner's lifestyle versus maximizing profitability, because maximize profitability means maximize taxation. And
hmm
so I'll give you just an easy example. That doesn't even break any laws, right? A business owner could decide to go to a conference and buy and fly business class, right? Totally within their purview to make that decision. But if you own 5% of that company, guess what? The difference in airline tickets now, that money is gone from the profitability, which means that the money is no longer there for you to participate in with a dividend, right? And so how can you get around that? Well, you know, either you have to be willing to enter into some really big agreement where you are going to have some kind of controls or limitations on all that sort of egregious spending that could occur in a small business, or you just have to find people who run their business really well and, you know, are trying to maximize their profit and hitch your wagon to their train,
hmm
right? And you're not going to know that until you get to know someone.
Very true.
Yeah.
Very, very true. All right. Well, then, because I'm also not opposed to, again, in time, trying to go after other small business acquisitions through direct mail. By the way, thank you for that. That's incredibly helpful. But so, have you found? Do you guys still are you still using direct mail much? Like, what have you guys found as far as in that being a potential source of finding um, business owners who are ready to, let go?
Yeah. So, I listen to a lot of podcasts and stuff of people that are, looking for businesses, and they talk about sending thousands of emails and all this kind of thing. And I talk to business owners who receive some of that stuff, and it's just so impersonal, so obviously a form letter, as we used to call them, that
hmm
a lot of them are just deleted, right? I talked with a guy, a CPA actually in Georgia, who's written a book about buying and integrating CPA firms. And he gets them himself. And he says, if these people ever just Googled my name, they would see that I'm out there buying CPA firms. I'm not trying to sell mine, right? So he knows that they're just blank. They're just like carpet bombing the world with these emails. And so I'm a big fan of letters because if anything really serious happens, like if you get in trouble with your taxes, Uncle Sam mails you a letter. That's how you know it's real, right?
We see that all the time. That we market through a three-letter companies, IRS, LNI. That's our marketing. Our marketing budget is through all those one DOR, Department of Revenue. That's how we market in the accounting
Yeah,
company.
yeah. So I think that letters are noticeable. They're tactile. People have to handle them. They're also durable. So
hmm
in my Business Buyer Advantage group coaching program, a lot of the people that are in there end up doing letter campaigns, and they'll report that people will call in response to a letter sometimes up to 2 years after receiving it,
hmm
because they'll get that letter and they don't want to sell, and they'll just tuck it away somewhere, and then they'll dig it out when something changes in their life. Because a lot of people who, in order to sell a small business, you have to be motivated. And the top motivations are burnout, boredom, and fatigue. I put them in one bucket, sort of mental engagement. And then there's divorce, um, the need to
The death
relocate,
disease.
illness.
Mhm.
The last one is retirement. And so only one of those five things is planned for. The other four things just happen to you. And so what'll happen is all of a sudden someone gets into a position where they now cannot see themselves carrying on as an owner, and then they're like having a bad day or whatever, and they're like, where was that person who wrote it to me, like where was, and then they'll return that person's contact. And the Now, this is where it kind of works against your methodology, and because you've been sending out tens of thousands of letters at a time, the more personal that you can make that letter, the better it is going to be as far as engagement. Like some of the people I work with will research and modify each individual letter based on what they can find about that person, the owner of the business.
Are they typically searching in specific locales where there's not a large number of, of their target per se? Because I mean, that makes sense if you're going after like 50 businesses.
Yeah,
Uh,
when you are refined enough to know that you're looking for machine shops with between 2 and 5 million in revenue within 90 miles of Schenectady, New York, yeah,
oh, for sure.
you can tailor each letter because you're going to have 20 targets or whatever it is, right? And so, yeah, and those kinds of letters are highly effective because, it says right in the letter, I'm looking for a business that looks like yours in this geography that with these characteristics, like the person who receives that letter knows this is a very targeted, serious person that, is probably around here that will come and visit me. You're going to have to take a more of a 10,000 foot approach. I would probably at least segment by industry.
For
So,
sure.
so when you decide to go out and offer this consulting service, what you're likely going to want to do is maybe choose, I don't know, a dozen industries. The the other advantage to you is that you can start recycling some of your work, right? Because if something works in the CPA world and you apply it to 15 different CPA firms, right? It makes it easier for you. That's where you get efficiency, right?
Hmm.
So, and then you start to think like who is operating similarly to CPA firms? Maybe, I don't know, law firm or a certain variety of law firm, right? Maybe there's
Hmm.
different, you want to categorize them into different buckets so that you pick these dozen people. And then especially once you start to get success with clients, then you can send another letter out to CPA firms saying, here's what we did for this client, right? And then you can start to have sort of that, you're holding out an example of a case study of someone that you helped and what the numbers looked like and how it was successful and create a little bit of a hurdle. Our services are correct for you if you have some of these things going on, right? And when people start to read that and they're like, oh yeah, that's me he's describing, then it creates an even bigger impetus for someone to want to respond to that.
Yeah, no, and that makes a lot of sense with that. So with someone more like me, like what are some of the things you think I should be looking at? I mean, you've already mentioned several that I think I should be looking out for, but like, would you recommend more the consulting route or more the buying business route? Because here's the thing: is that typically for myself, historically, after about 3 years, I get done with the thing more or less.
Mm-hmm.
From the past 10 years, that is the past 10, 12 years, that is about the pattern. First year, I'm figuring out. Second year, I'm systemizing it a lot. And third year, I'm kind of looking for the next thing. Um, which that's kind of where the whole idea of the minority thing. But yeah, you're definitely, I mean, we're a CPA firm. We see what number do you want it to say, and then we will do tax planning and whatever, following all the laws, following all the stuff we have to do. But it's like, there's things you can do. This is why CPA firms are sold on gross. Because the gross, as any CPA firm knows, is the only real number. Everything else is a modification of that number underneath. So, in but that is what it is. But so
So,
with my, anyways, go ahead.
well, I've worked for people who have gotten into the consulting industry because they were actually doing a clandestine search. And the biggest group of people who do this are people that get into business brokerage. Because the number one way I think that people want to leave business brokerage, many of them have to leave just because they don't make any money, but the number one way they want to leave is by finding that diamond in the rough and buying it. And honestly, I had this dream too. I thought if everyone in town was calling me to sell their business, I get the first pick of any businesses that come up. And in fact, we executed on that once because I was married at the time, and a great little retail kind of shop came up, and I thought this would be perfect for my wife. And so we bought it, and that became her full-time job, was running that shop. And it was successful until we got divorced. And but I would have come across that opportunity if I hadn't been in that seat. And so any kind of like one of the things you might want to advertise in your promotional material is that this process could be integral in getting your business prepared for sale. So if somebody is thinking about retirement, remember that's one of the 5 that people plan for. If someone's thinking, I might retire in 5 or 6 years, then they get your direct mail and it says, here's a way that you can enhance your business value and prepare for an exit. That person might think, oh, okay, this makes sense for me to explore. They might work with you to go through all the enhancements. You know they want to exit, then maybe it's something that you want to buy. And you already have a relationship with that person at the time, and they already know you. And that, of course, opens the door to all kinds of advantages in making an offer that might have more seller financing or more cooperative terms from the seller, et cetera, because you'll have this relationship. I'm guessing that some of these people you will end up working with over the course of 6 to 12 months, right?
Oh yeah, I mean to build out everything, and like I have 7 years experience working with offshore teams as well, so I build out offshore teams and all this other stuff. So
Yeah.
it takes
So
time.
so these business owners are going to get to know Tim and get to know what Tim's all about and whether Tim knows what he's talking about and et cetera over the course of that time. And all of the examples, I I poo-poo a lot when people talk online about buying a business with no money, but all of the actual real verifiable examples that I've seen, it's because a seller was willing to basically bend over backwards to facilitate a deal like that. And the only way someone does that is with when the business is a good asset, I should caveat. The only time when a seller does that is when they know and trust and like that buyer, and they want to go out of their way to make that person the owner. And so, not to say that you're going to be able to buy businesses with no money, but I think you'll get a lot better deal and a lot better terms than if you were a stranger knocking on their door.
Yeah, so it almost sounds like you're saying that for me in particular, I should just try to go the consulting route as a just to start, not even really market myself as a quote business investor or business buyer per se.
Yeah.
Just try to go to consulting.
Like there's a growing industry of people out there. Mike Finger at exitoasis.com is a coach that helps people get their business ready for sale. And
Hmm.
and that is a growing sector. And a lot of the stuff that he would work on with clients would be like their systems and processes and delegation and how they manage things. But he doesn't get in there and roll up his sleeves and do the work to set things up. So it's a little bit different than
Hmm.
what you're doing. But that is a growing industry because people see the need, right? And
Oh, for
as
sure.
more and more people hear about business owners working with these types of coaches, helpers, consultants, et cetera, I think the idea starts to spread and people become more open-minded to it. And so, you know,
Awesome.
yeah. So the precedent
All
is there
right.
is what
Well,
I'm trying to
now I
say.
need to pivot into a little bit in how I wanted to market myself, which is oh, lost you for a sec.
Yeah, it's just a little internet hiccup.
No problem. So okay, no, this is really interesting. So, and again, this is a question of how long a piece of string is. For how would you be determining price point value sort of situations like because a pricing calculator, a management team, a org chart structure, like what would you just base that on potentially what time savings to the owner times whatever hourly rate the owner considers their own value at, or if you had any thoughts on that or experience with that.
So I always get this really clever piece of direct mail every spring. And I've noticed it
Okay.
now. I know that I get it every spring. And it's from an out of town roofing company that has this unique kind of metal roof product. And they always send a piece of mail saying, we are looking for 6 show homes in the greater Moncton area for this season that we can point out to other people. And for these 6 show homes, we're making special offers if you call and book before a certain date and get us to come out and see you. Right now, Is that real or is that just their sales pitch? I don't know. But I think you should do whatever it takes to get the first 5 or 6 clients so that you can actually build a book of case studies to demonstrate value. But I think once you've got those under your belt, you should definitely be using some sort of value-based pricing. And of course, the value of what you deliver is going to be different for businesses of different sizes, right? And so what you might want to consider is categorizing the the just create sort of a matrix maybe where you involve the number of employees perhaps as a way of measuring the price points. So in organizations under, 10 employees or something like this, or you could use dollars of revenue. The issue with that is that like I would almost say gross profit would be a better one.
Hmm.
Uh just because you could have oh, I don't know. You could have like a residential home cleaning service, right? And it's a service-based business, and the you could have $1 million of revenue and 15 employees in a business like that. But you could also have a residential heating oil delivery business with $20 million of revenue, but it's only got 8 employees because the cost of goods sold is so high, right?
Hmm.
So strictly looking at revenue is not really going to give you an accurate breakdown of the complexity you're going to find in the business. So I would say either employee headcount or gross profit, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I
Maybe
mean,
think,
I'm probably more toward employee because if I'm looking at businesses that aren't that they don't have that good of systems, it would be interesting to trust if they know what their gross profit number even is.
well,
You know, they may or may not. I'm not saying they won't, but again, we do run an accounting firm as well.
yeah.
So
Well, and it would depend on industry too, whether direct labor goes into cost of goods sold or not. So
yeah,
maybe again, this is an exercise where choosing the industries is important because maybe if you did silo, for example, CPA firms, you could say CPA firms with this number of license holding CPAs, maybe make a differentiation between them and the other support staff. I don't know. But I would sort in some way to create different prices where the value is different. And probably the complexity of your work is going to be different too.
for sure.
Yeah. And I think it's going to be a trial and error thing. I think you're going to work with some people and you're going to refine it. In my own pricing with one-on-one consulting clients, there's been an evolution over the years. Like it used to, when I first started, I did what most people do as a crutch. I had an hourly rate. Then I moved to fixed price. Then I moved to sort of packaged prices that included a bunch of
Deliverables.
stuff. And then,
Hmm.
yeah, and then I moved to breaking it into categories based on the size of the businesses. Because when the businesses got bigger, there was more work. So and it's probably going to change again. And so it's going to evolve.
Yeah, so I have a buddy of mine, and he is a coach, business mentor, and but he doesn't do so much of the done for you stuff because there definitely is that piece. And now he doesn't do the same thing I do; he does different stuff. He actually has more experience than I do in running a larger business, and he's super smart. But he's having a really hard time with like getting people because he kind of goes in the do-it-yourself coaching thing. Like he'll coach you, and then you have to do it. So how involved, one, do you get with your consulting, or would you then recommend? Because you said the more done for you that you can do, the better. Um, I mean, where would you try to draw that line as far as that goes, or what would be your suggestion down that path?
I have a buddy who does business coaching, and he offers a package which is good for a year. And what he does is he has a 15 to 30-minute conversation with you about whatever the problem is. But then the rule is at the end of that call, you will have some kind of thing to do, like homework, and you can't call him back until the homework is done. And there are some of his clients that are calling him every week and doing their thing every week, and they're making huge progress in their business. And there's other people who buy the same package and they've called them 2 times in a year because they never take the time to do the thing they're supposed to do. Right. And this is the problem with, sort of investing yourself with some of these business owners and not being paid. So I did I did a live stream with a woman back in November, Susan Fenema, and she does this. She goes into businesses and helps set up productivity tools. Like she'll set up Asana or uh,
Hmm.
Monday.com or Workspace. I forget there was a big one she used a lot, but I forget the name of it. But she will actually go, and her employees will actually go and integrate these solutions and do the work, and then teach the staff in the company how to use it and make it go. And so the people who want that, they just want the problem fixed and gone. They want someone to come in and like do it for them. They love that, even though obviously it costs more, right? She will also do the more, sort of coach you through it so you can do it on your own, but it's got to be the right kind of business owner who's actually going to get value from that. One of the things that you want to consider when you're doing your pricing is like price is part of marketing. What are the P's? Product, place, price, promotion. Did I get them all?
I think that's right. Or is pitch one of them? I'm not sure.
Well, the other one that I always add on there is terms, because the price is just the number. How the number is paid is also a function of marketing and making this work. So if your solution is, it is a $40,000 fix to do this in your business, one of the ways that you can make it easy, more palatable, is to then break that into components. Like, here's our critical path of our project. Here are the milestones, and here are the payments at the milestones. So think about someone building a custom home, right? That's the kind of arrangement you have. There's some kind of money up front, and then there's like, when the foundation's done, you pay us this money. When the framing's done, you pay us this money. When plumbing, electrical are in, you pay us this money. When drywall's up, you pay us this money. And then 60 days after you take control of the house, after we've addressed all the nicks and scratches that you found, then you owe us the rest, right? And so I think that kind of scheme is also going to be important. Um, like it really does amaze me how many people own functioning, profitable businesses, but are also highly unorganized people that don't seem to be able to get much done. Um, and when I when I was younger, I thought this was because I believed everyone existed on this IQ spectrum.
Hmm.
And I would go into a business, like in my early career in sales, I would go into a business and just see this chaotic nut house or whatever. And I would be like, how do you have 5 million of revenue and you can't keep a day timer? How did you do that? Because I was like, you don't seem smart enough. Like, what's going on? But then later when I discovered and there's many of these kind of systems, but I discovered the Myers-Briggs personality
Hmm.
thing. Now I understand, because there's like these different spectrums that have to do with different aspects of personality, and you could totally be a disorganized person that has trouble keeping a schedule, and you can build a successful business. And now that I've said that, maybe that could become part of how you identify your clientele. I don't know. But remember when I was talking about how you could actually describe the business and the problems in the business
Hmm.
in your direct mail piece? Maybe you could describe the owner too. Like you could say, like, do you come into the office with the intention of doing A, B, and C, and by the time you're done putting out your fires, there just isn't enough time left in the day to make any progress, right?
Hmm.
That kind of language could really resonate with the person that has that type of personality, right?
Yeah. If they even get to the mail, but yes, hopefully they would have some at some point there. But yes.
Well, hopefully some kind of gatekeeper who lives in that world will read that and run over and say, look at this.
This is what we need here. Oh yeah, there's a lot of people like that. What was that lady's name? Susan. What was her last name?
Susan Fenema with two
Cinema.
N's. And she'd be in the live streams on the YouTube channel.
Okay.
Yep. And we talked about bottlenecks in business. But if you
Hmm.
go through to her website, you'll see that her business has the word chaos in it, like control the chaos or conquer the
Hmm.
chaos. It's something about eliminating chaos in a business.
There's definitely a lot of that out there. But then again, those people are really good salespeople and really high, DIs in the disc assessment stuff.
Yes.
Where I'm very much a SC. That's kind of where I sit.
Okay.
Just to say a little bit about me from a personality test. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm a very much a thinker. Like I, contemplate things and plan it out, and all the stuff that I do that is, public facing or shaking hands, being social, a lot of it is like stuff I've really worked on.
my always thing is I got to get myself to the center of the room, and once I get to the center of the room, I'll have a good time. I just hate it until I get there. And if I can get in there, and I did that for a networking group I was a part of for years. I had to get to roughly the center of the room. And at least if I made it to there, then I would see somebody I knew, and then it would be all right. But up until that point, I hated it. But no, yeah, the system stuff. I love the systems. I was literally trying to fall asleep last night. We're changing project management systems in the accounting business because of price point. Now, there's a few other things that this thing just doesn't have, and I've learned a lot more about the accounting space. And literally last night, I could not sleep because they run their project management, their pipelines different. And we're going to be going from, I've always had, this is really nerdy system stuff, but I've always had sequential pipelines, all the way through. And this is the first one that's really a non-sequential pipeline as an option, which I'm really looking forward to. It's called a state of work flow. It's stupid. It's sequential or state of work. But so we'll be able to not have to wait for clients and have it gum up everything. We can do other things while we're waiting for the client within the workflow still.
Oh, so you can create like a I remember back in the day, I would learned about critical path analysis, but there's like different paths that could be happening while the critical path might be the longest one or
Yep.
the one that has to be executed. The other paths could also make progress.
Yeah.
So it allows for that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, it allows for that, which I'm really looking forward to. Or having, because in the old PM project management software, we had to do, one person to this, then one person to that, one person, and it would only notify each person one by one. Now it's like, hey, two people are starting, you're doing this and this, you're doing this and this. These are not connected. Like if these get done, this one doesn't have to get done. And then so then we can keep the flow going. So I'm excited for that to keep the flow because we're doing a lot of I really enjoyed the book called Traction. I read it 2 or 3 times.
Hmm.
It's just kind of a rough framework of how to run a business. So we've been doing a lot of that. We have our meetings set up in the Traction format. We have our KPIs in place that we didn't have before. And those are only 3 months old. We've been doing those for 3 months, but that's already been helping. And but yeah, I love that stuff. I literally couldn't sleep last night because I was thinking about it and got out of bed and wrote a Facebook post about it because I was like, because I was yesterday I was pissed off. I was like, this is dumb. Like, why isn't it letting me do the way I want to do it? And I was like, oh, this is why. It's because it's giving me the freedom to do other things. So,
Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
anyways,
And in an unstructured business environment, you would actually have an individual acting like the traffic cop of those files who would say, "Oh, well, we don't have this from the client, but we can still work on this. Go do this." Right.
hmm
And typically that's the owner, right? Who's like trying to direct this traffic and trying to keep people busy. And yeah, I can totally see that. Um, yeah, well, that's cool. So what
yeah,
else?
yeah.
What else do you want to talk about?
Uh, those are kind of some of the big things that I guess I really had on my plate for that. I really appreciate all the stuff on the marketing and trying to pitch myself as a consultant. I have a little bit of a hard time, I guess mentally, I could talk about this, is that, largest business I've ran did top line like 1.4 million, which isn't a ton. Biggest team I've ran is this current one, which is like 8 or 9 people. Um, and some potential, I've heard of some people saying, well, then you can only consult businesses that are smaller and teams that are smaller. And now I don't necessarily believe that because it doesn't make sense because there's other companies I see where they have massive holes where like, this one guy has his accounts receivable pipeline that has this giant hole in it that I'm gonna try to talk to him about a little bit. He runs a roofing company. I,
Hmm.
I just had my roof repaired by him, and I actually purposely didn't pay and purpose for a week for I think 2 or 3 weeks because I wanted to see what would happen if I didn't pay for a couple weeks, and then I wanted to see what happened if I didn't do this or that. And there's some definite holes there. But so, where's your thought as far as being a consultant, consulting with people and businesses that are bigger slash better or whatever than you've ever done? What are your thoughts, or how do you deal with that imposter syndrome?
Well, first of all, you look at them with a different lens. So there's revenue and then there's also team size, right? So you can look at it in a different lens. The other thing too is that there's no harm in embracing where you can position yourself as an expert, because I always think about the world of businesses like a mountain, like a conical
Mhm.
mountain or like a pyramid in Egypt, right? So at the base, you have the smallest businesses, but they're the vast majority. And then, publicly traded companies, there's only a few of them that they're at the peak, right? So it's okay to serve small businesses because there's a ton of them. And that's lots of opportunity, right? And as you are successful with those small businesses, the most powerful aspect of marketing, which is just going to be referrals, you're going to end up having the opportunity to work with slightly larger businesses. And then you're going to build your case study book of those bigger businesses. And then you can start to leverage that into getting further up the cone, like to the bigger ones. Um, but I mean, a small business doing $1.5 million in revenue, if you go in there with a solution that's going to cost $30,000 that they can pay out over a year or 15 months, and it's going to enhance their productivity and let them add 3 or 4 points to the bottom line, you will pay for yourself in a year. That's a heck of a value proposition. And if you are getting a bunch of clients that are paying you that amount of money, you don't need a whole lot of clients to make a viable consulting business. So don't let the small size of these businesses be a detriment to you. The other thing too, so sometimes in the world of small business, there are different programs, grants, subsidies, other kinds of government interventions that might be available. There was a program here provincially for human resource development, and a friend of mine who runs a coaching program where he teaches people like time management skills and efficiency. He actually has a franchise from LMI, Leadership Management International. Um, he saw that his training fit the general definition of that program. And so he ran around like signing people up saying, look, here's how you can get a subsidy from the government for doing my training. And so um, reach out to economic development agencies, SCORE offices, find out what supports there might be at the federal, state, and local levels for different kinds of enhancements for businesses. Um, like one right now in Canada, one of the big ones we have is that there's a program where people can get a loan at 0% interest for digital adoption. So a company that wanted to move from a paper-based workflow process to some of the online tools that you're talking about, they can't get a grant for it, but they could borrow money at 0% to do that work. And so stuff like that is out there. And if you can tweak your offering to fit the guidelines of one of those programs, that's fantastic because you can actually get, part of the bill paid for if you can find the program.
Yeah, no, that sounds awesome. I could definitely look into that, especially, my partner, my mother used to be run a nonprofit for 10 years. So grants and grant writing and all that sort of stuff is definitely in her purview.
Yeah. And then another big thing for you would be center of influence marketing. So finding, and I think business brokers would be a big one. So business brokers meet a lot of business owners and they'll look at their business because the person wants to know maybe what the opinion of what it would be like to sell the business. And brokers will spot people that are in complete disarray. And it usually shows up in the financials too. I had a meeting the other day with someone whose net profit is about 10 points lower than it should be according to their industry benchmarks. And
It's a lot.
yeah, well, it's frustrating, right? I mean, in this person's particular case, they've got over $2 million running through their company and they're taking home like 90 grand. And according to their industry benchmarks, they should be taking home like 250 to 350.
Hmm.
And so that's frustrating, right? But if that person goes to a business broker and says, I want to sell, the broker's going to say, your business isn't worth that much because it doesn't make enough money. If that broker directed them to a person like you with the idea of fixing the business so that it could become saleable in a couple of years, then that broker might get the listing eventually. So you can see there's like could be a symbiotic relationship between you and business brokers, for example,
Hmm.
and other kinds of financial planning professionals that people look to for advice on this kind of stuff.
Now, question with that is that because I can use the accounting company's brand because we do have a kind of a fractional COO type thing. We haven't really marketed at all because we haven't put together what it would look like. I can use that brand, or do you think that now I don't have any other brand that's really me, myself, and I? Do you think that there is value in me using the accounting company's brand for something like that, or would that just muddy the waters
Are you going to market to the accounting company's clients?
to our own clients? It is one of my thoughts that I could do that as well. I just did a thumbs up bubble somehow. Cool.
That's just that the AI was reading your mind. That's what that was. The um like I so thinking of systems and thinking of processes, you may never find a business that you want to buy, but you may
Sure.
implement your own methodologies and your own skills into your own business and eventually grow out with associates and other practitioners in your business. And you might end up building a business that you might sell one day.
Mhm.
And so I would say go with some kind of branding that, is not Tim's Tim helps you get organized or anything like that. Like
Mhm.
you want to go with some kind of branding and look, feel, etc. that is going to be something that could grow. And I don't think it's a bad idea to embrace small clients. Like you could totally build a business on smaller businesses.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be fair, small businesses do spend, especially some of them, especially some of these nonprofits, spend a lot of money on consultants who do close to nothing, it feels like. Some of them, anyways. Not all of them, but definitely some of them.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen that. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, we had one that was for a nonprofit. It was hilarious. It was like everyone gets 2 weeks vacation. They were had them write the handbook. Everyone gets 2 weeks vacation. Well, is that 2 weeks of full time? But we also have people who are part time. And then so is it 2 part-time weeks of vacation or is it 2 full-time weeks of vacation? Or if they change part of the way through the year, then is it based off the full-time or the part-time? And there was like three other things that made it really confusing. And literally they like copy and pasted a employee handbook that then they paid like X amount of thousands of dollars to have this consultant put together for them. And it's wild trying to actually do the payroll, which we don't really do. We only do it for like 3 or 4 clients. I'm trying to get us out of that. It's way too regulatory, and we have partners we push that to. But yeah, when the rubber meets the road, it's interesting to see how it actually works.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Well, I think it's a good idea, and I know there's a demand for it, and I know there's a need for it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it would be interesting to find out what happens. Like, let me know.
Yeah, no, this is an idea I've played around with. I've been on the edge of it for a while, but and honestly, the marketing it via direct mail is probably my favorite way of marketing, just because I get to outsource a lot of my no's. People don't say no to my face; they just throw away the letter most of the time. Some people do call up and say, "How dare you?" But most of the time, they just throw it away, and I can handle that a lot better psychologically.
Well, I'll tell you what I like about direct mail is just that it's a thing that must be handled. And
Mm-hmm.
so there's the tactile element to it. And I mean, there's some days the mailman doesn't bother stopping at my house anymore. There's so little coming, right? And so when I open the mailbox and there's an ad from a local business and two envelopes, like the ad from the local business gets attention because it's not like 1992 where there were like 30 items in there and you literally sorted your mail over a garbage can. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's so much more rare these days. And obviously it's because of the cost associated with it, but if
True.
somebody's paying, like some people are paying cost per click to Google of like 15, $20 for some industries, man,
Yeah.
you can mail someone a letter every month for a year for that amount of money.
Oh yeah. I mean, my costs. I bought it in bulk. What am I at? 57 cents, 2 page windowed envelope. I mean, it has the printed on stamp. It's not the paper, not the other stamp. There's a million variations in direct mail. And yeah, but yeah, that could be interesting. And one last thing that I kind of forgot here. I guess I should put this under a different name because I shouldn't do it under. You would suggest not doing it under the accounting company's name, but doing it under a different name because I may exit the accounting company at some point, and then that would be kind of a disjointed.
Well, you know, is there some kind of advantage that being associated with that company can give you to start, especially if you're going to be marketing in an area where that name may be recognized? There could be value, but any of the sort of case studies or initial clients that you build up initially, I
Hmm.
mean, you're going to be able to port those if you do a rebranding,
Okay,
right?
and no, I like that because then I could even see, hey, maybe I don't like being a consultant for someone else because I don't have the control to actually say, no, this is what we're going to do. That's a possibility as well.
Yeah. Um, yeah, just put some thought into it, like where you want to end up. I've never met anyone before who has started a business under one brand while planning to change it to another one,
Hmm.
but I can see that there might be a few case studies or a few use cases where that could actually be a plan. I have to think
And
about that for a while.
I just want to kind of get out there going as quickly as possible in one sense, just to, to see if it has traction or if people want it or not. Um, or if they want, my particular flavor of it or not.
Hmm. Yeah.
So,
Well, like I said, anything you do under any brand, if you choose to rebrand, you're going to be able to reuse all those case studies. I
and
mean,
and that's all I want. So I think that kind of answers that one.
yeah.
Bada boom.
Awesome. All right, man. Well, good luck.
All right, thanks, David. Thanks for your advice.
No problem. Have a great day and happy holidays.
All right, bye.
All right. Bye.